longer version of it. This was a first version, but I realized I could make an anagram out of it. So that's why it's shorter now. That's more to the point, and that's exactly what I want to answer with you a little bit, and where I want to share my thoughts about that. And I intentionally chose the words I am agile, not we are agile. Actually, it's funny. If I'm standing here, I can't see you anymore. So bear with me if I'm looking strange. Yeah. So if I stand here, it's working. So it's about the individuals. It's about us as a person. Yeah. In agility, in Scrum, in other frameworks, we talk a lot about we as a team. And when I give trainings or when I do coachings, I hear very often, what about me? You know, matrix we heard already today. With this, we need to check them off. Self-development, how can I evaluate myself? How can I personally develop within a team? Things like that are very often asked. And I have my own view on that, and that's what part of this talk is today. But I also want to hear some thoughts about from you. So you can always interrupt me. Yeah, I give this talk for the very first time. So this is a premiere. Yeah, congratulations, you're the first ones to hear it. This is what you can tell your grandchildren about 20 years. You know, I was part of it. Maybe it will become a book later. I already have some ideas about that. So anyway, you heard the music. This was relaxing. We don't listen to that anymore. I'm just skipping over that. And of course, if I'm giving a talk about individuals, I mean, I thought, who am I actually? Yeah. So that's how I started. I created this very short profile of mine, and I thought about, if I'm thinking about myself, my own personal development, my own connection to agility, where is this connection? What does matter for that? And I just listed all my different roles. I mean, I don't know if they are all, but some of my different roles I have, which where I'm acting and behaving differently or not. I mean, that's what I'm not so sure about yet. That's what I'm still trying to figure out. But you can see here, I mean, it's pretty much the same for everybody in the room. Maybe not the same list, of course, but you have different roles. You're acting, you're working, you're listening, you're living in different environments, in different systems. Who said that in the morning? I think it was in the keynote. I'm mixing up the talks already, so what I heard today already. Some of them were really fascinating. But I think it was Klaus Leopold who said you belong to different systems, wasn't it? Can you help? No? This was another talk, right? Which one was it? I don't know, it doesn't matter. But of course, we are belonging to different systems, like a family. Oh, it was Gerhard Hammer. Yeah, he said it in his vision in the morning. We are part of a family, we are part of a company, things like that. Yeah, and there we have these different roles. Which one is the most important for me? I don't know. I mean, I love this a lot, but it's a different story. So, when I started thinking about what do I want to tell you, of course, I did my research on the internet, in books and so on, and I came across this article written by Polly Campbell this year actually, and she called it The Exhilaration and Angst of an Agile Mind. I love that. Angst is a German word, but it's used in English as well. I learned that there are many German words actually in English. It's in Psychology Today, and she said actually every year she's picking up a different theme, and for this year it's agility. And what I really liked about this article is this summary here. So I started with a summary actually. Yeah. So she said, what is agility? Of course, physically working to improve balance and flexibility. Okay, but the real growth is more on the spiritual side, on the mental side. So agility is a little bit, if you think about us as persons, as individuals, of course, it has to do with our physiological, me, ourselves, but also with the spiritual, with the mental us. And that's interesting. That's the more interesting part for me actually. So I don't talk too much about the physiology, etc. I want to be more responsive than reactive. Yeah? She wants to be that. Agility, does it really mean to be more reactive to something? I mean, I started already thinking when I read this first sentence of part sentence here. what is what's the difference for you between being responsive and reactive? How do you read that? How do you understand that?
Reactive sounds kind of passive.
Yeah.
And responsive is acting.
Acting in a good way. Okay. Yeah. Any other or thoughts on that?
Reactive is something comes, like car is going to hit me, so I jump.
Okay.
That's reactive. And active is I walk on a sidewalk. I don't walk on a road. So there shouldn't any touch. God shouldn't hit me. Shouldn't count the possibility.
That's an interesting example. I mean, that means you would prepare on a dangerous road not being hit by a car.
I will minimize
the risk. Ah, cool.
Reactive is something for me that is not inclusive or exclusive, like I will react to something,
Yeah.
and responsive to me is some kind of collaboration where I take the other thing that comes into account and combine it somehow.
Okay.
If somebody yells at me and I yell back, I'm reactive. If somebody yells at me and I try to figure out why the person is yelling, and I try to figure out, why the situation came the way it did,
Yeah.
then I think I'm responsive.
Oh, that's a nice view. I like that. Yeah. That's exactly, I think, what Polly. I mean, if you would read the entire article, that's where she's going to. Yeah. So it's really taking your time, take a little bit of a rest before you know what to respond to, instead of immediately reacting. Yeah. Let's look a little bit further. Be able to adapt when required. I mean, we have this inspect and adapt cycles. I mean, this is a common view on it, I would say, right? And also being more flexible and creative in her thinking. That's also a nice view, what I really like. Being more flexible in the thinking. We always hear thinking outside of the box. Yeah. We are very limited very often in our thoughts because we are living in a structure, in a system. The system has its boundaries, etc., etc. But here, she says, agility is also being more flexible and creative. So finding the time to be creative is also a challenge then, of course, I would say. But creativity, I think, is also something that belongs to agility. You know, I wrote my PhD thesis about agility, organizational structures, and how they connect to each other, etc., etc. And one of my doctoral fathers was actually, they didn't have anything to do with agility. I started in 2001, and that's when the word was created, right? Agility. So I had, my challenge was to find somebody who wants to support me in that endeavor. And one of them was coming from innovation management. And the reason why he said, yeah, I want to support you with your PhD thesis was, he said, in innovation management, we have a lot of these techniques, we use a lot of these techniques, and they are pretty much the same as you describe here. So that might be interesting how we can connect these two different disciplines together. So coming back to this creativity, innovation, right? And on the bottom line, she says, I want to flow easier into change. Flowing into change. Something esoteric. That's, if I got that in my mind, I'm imagining how can I flow into change? What does that look like? What does that mean for me as a person? Right? Yeah. Interesting. So, sure.
And isn't it the responsible resistance?
Yeah. It's probably opposite of it, maybe, yeah. Could be, yeah, absolutely. So, let's look further. My three topics I want to touch briefly in this talk is the foundation a little bit, but I don't want to bore you with the basics, but what are we using and how they connect to personal change, so the mind shift. And of course, then once again, how can I evaluate myself? How can I figure out whether I'm agile or not? So, she, in this article, and then coming also from another book, which is called The Agile Mind, we have another benefit which comes later. I have a collection of 4 benefits for this talk, and the first one I want to go with is flexible mindset allows us to live in a place of greater openness and possibility rather than repetitive and rigid thought patterns and behavior. Yeah, so talking about structure, about systems, about limitations, about regulations. these are the basics. I think everybody of you have heard about the Agile Manifesto before, right? Yes? Who has not? Okay. The Agile Manifesto consists of 4 values. Yeah. So, and we have our chief coaches in here. He's a psychologist, so he will correct me by everything I say, because I do a very dangerous thing in here. I use models and I use numbers. And of course, a famous person once said, every model is wrong, but some of them are useful. And that's why I've chosen some models to make it more understandable what I think that all means, right? So we have 4 values in here, and the model I've chosen I want to connect to is the model which is coming from Robert Dilts. Everybody heard about Robert Dilts before? This is the pyramid of neurological levers. Yeah? This is connected to neurolingual programming, the systemic version of it. And he said, actually, this is based on work done by a guy called Gregory Bateson. He was an anthropologist and said there are 6 levels of change. And before that, this was based on a work done by Bertrand Russell, who was a mathematician and has, it's coming from mathematics. Don't go into details here. But this is the Robert Dilts version, neurological levers. And that means we all belong in our system, or we as a person, our identity, our mind, we can divide it into these 6 different levels. The first one, no, not the first one, our identity, who we are. This is exactly the question. Who I am, who am I? This is the deepest level. This is really very deep inside of us. This is coming a little bit from our genetics, so what we inherit from our parents, but also what we build up over the years. Yeah? The next level, beliefs and values. This is where we ask often the question, why? Yeah? Why am I doing that? I am believing in something. Not to misunderstand it as a religion or something. Religion is more located here or here. Beliefs is, I believe, walking on the right side of the street is correct. Something like that, to take your example from the cars. Capabilities and skills. This is the question, how am I doing something? The level of where I can learn my skills, where I can figure out how I can resolve a problem or so. That's the next level is then what I'm doing, our behavior. Yeah? And driven is that all by where, when, with whom, our environment we are living. So these are the main 5 levers. Beyond identity means this is where I belong to. This is going towards a community, or I belong to a company, I belong to a family. So this is going beyond myself, beyond my own identity. I'm more than just myself if I belong to this group, right? So this is the theory Robert Dilts came up with, and he called that neurological levers. The funny thing is, the direction of development is that way. The direction of application is that way. Yeah? Development means if something in our environment changes, also maybe our behavior changes, also then our skills and so forth are changing. Yeah? Of course, it's a little bit bi-directional, so it's not strictly that way, but this is usually the direction of the influence. Correct me, Dietmar, if I'm saying something you see differently. Like that, it's just a model. The funny thing about that is, these 2 levers, they exist in our conscious mind. So this is what we can learn, this is what we are getting taught, etc. And our behavior, of course, we do things consciously. Of course, we are also doing things unconsciously, but usually our decisions, our behavior, our decisions to behave somehow, this is in our conscious mind. And the other 2 levers, the identity and beliefs, this is what is happening in our unconscious part of ourselves. And this is one of the biggest challenges that coaches face. Because very often what I see with coaches who are new to this profession, they start with, why did you do that? But this is the private part of me. Yeah? This is what I can often observe in a second. Yeah? What I often can observe that, the door is closed. Why did you do that? don't want to tell you, that's my private thing. If I'm doing something here, if I'm asking questions about what and how, that's working. Yeah? If I'm asking questions about why, maybe not.
There's also this part which is actually unconscious and public, right? But collectively unconscious,
Yeah.
which is like common to one nation or to one certain group of people.
Yeah, of course we could go beyond all that to culture, oral influences, etc., and things like that. That would be too much for today, but thanks for the input. Yes, absolutely. There was another question, or no? So, let's think that a little bit further. We have these neurological levels now, and we want to change. I want to become agile. Yeah. I'm not born agile. I think I wasn't born agile. Yeah. I was working, or I was taught traditional project management. So some of my beliefs belong to these traditional structures, to the traditional systems, to the traditional behaviors, all of that. So I definitely wasn't born agile. So the four values we have in the Agile Manifesto, did I own them already? Or did they have to be built up? So, here's a little bit of mathematics. And that's where I said it's dangerous, because it's completely incorrect. It's just giving you an idea of how difficult it can be to change a belief or a value. If you want to change on this level, one value, not our identity yet, but one level, that means usually we need the influence of 3 inputs or 3 influences from the next lower level. Yeah. That's what I learned in when I did my coaching education and NLP education, etc. That's what my coach told me. Yeah. We need 3 inputs, at least 3 inputs from the next lower level. That means another 3, and another 3 times more. If we sum that up, one value means we need to change actually or learn 3 new skills. If we want to learn 3 new skills, we need to change 9 of our behaviors, and that means we need at least 27 external influences for just one value. And now in the Agile Manifesto we have 4 values. If we didn't own any of them, so if they weren't part of ourselves yet, we need to change 4. And that means, oh, yeah, okay, let's jump over that and I come back to the slide. I need to change the sequence, I guess. So if you have the Agile Manifesto, and we look at this theory of Robert Dills of the neurological levels and all these influencing factors and how they connect to each other and how many of those we need, the mathematics tell us 4 values times 3 skills times 9 behaviors means 108 environmental changes or influences that we can become agile according to the Agile Manifesto. And being really agile doesn't just mean living according to the Agile Manifesto. That's the minimum. We have also 12 Agile principles. If we do the math further, it goes way beyond that. So I just wanted to highlight that to show you how difficult it really can be for us as human beings to go that way. And for some people it's probably really impossible. It's a lot of influence, it's a lot of change that's going on inside of us in our mind. Yeah. That's the interesting part. How can we still make that happen? Because it almost sounds impossible. We have some tools and disciplines and professions we can use on the various different layers. So if we really want to change our identity, the deepest part of us, Robert Dills calls that sponsorship. This is a little bit connected to mentoring, which is on the beliefs and values layer. So if we do role modeling, if we do also coaching on here, sponsorship is if you have somebody who is really living up to it, to whatever. I think it was Mahatma Gandhi who said, you have to be the change if you want others to change. Right? I think that was his quote. So on this layer, we have teaching as the main tool. Yeah? here behavior is about coaching, but it doesn't stop here at the behavior level. Of course, it goes up to here. So it just starts here, this starts here, and this is here on the values level. So these are the tools we can use that we can help others or ourselves as well to become agile. And on the environmental level, we have caretaking and guiding, guidance, leadership, etc. Things like that. So, still conscious, unconscious mind, and there's at the beyond identity, he called it awakening. Yeah. He also wrote a book which is called From Coach to Awakener. Yeah. But I don't go into these details, so this book is really interesting to read, I guess. I only know parts of it yet, so but this is the next one I want to fully read.
It's from Robert Still.
Robert Still, yes, absolutely. So we already did the mathematics. So habits. When talking about becoming agile, we often say, we are falling back into old habits. It's also about change. We have our habits. We say human beings are creatures of habit. That's also a common saying. There's a myth coming from a book written by Maxwell Maltz in 1960, which says it takes 21 days to form a habit. It's just a myth, don't write that down. Because there are newer studies about that, and one of them is coming from the University College of London, who evaluated actually by observing a group of very different people, and they figured out actually to form a habit, like drinking your tea every day at the same time, for example, this takes between 18 to 254 days. 18 to 254. Yeah, it's going close to a year, or at least. Yeah.
Should this apply also for the avoidance or something? So to learn how to avoid?
Yeah, sure. It's a habit, probably. Yeah. Could be.
So also for the negative action.
Yeah, absolutely. The question then is, if it takes that long to form a habit, how long does it take to break a habit? Yeah? Is it sufficient? And by reading through all that what I've shown you today, is it sufficient if in your organization your CEO comes to you, I'm a CEO, I was introduced as a CEO today. I'm a CEO, strong person. I have the power over you everybody. We become agile in this room. Now, would that work?
Yay!
Oh yeah, thank you. I mean, this is really the interesting part about it. I've seen so many companies where really this we become agile was started top down, just top down. But this volunteering aspect, this aspect of it takes time for me to change. I mean, everybody knows that, of course, it's obvious, but we forget about it. And it takes not just a week or 2 weeks or 3 sprints or something like that. Yeah, after 3 sprints, Scrum is working. We are all agile because we do Scrum now. Or we have Jira or something else. Now, that's not going to happen. It's really taking much more than that. And to become agile as an individual is probably a really long journey if you're not already believing in these values, what we have in the Agile Manifesto, and also the Agile principles.
I'm just wondering, can you actually break a habit at all? Because you probably have to adopt new habits, and then it takes 18 to 250 days.
There are different mechanics for that. You can break a habit, yes, because if you look at addiction treatment, I mean, this is also the answer on here. I don't know how long it really takes. I couldn't find any research on that, but what I found is how long does it take? How long does addiction treatment take, for example? They have a common period of 90 days. Do you know a different period, Dietmar? So 90 days, but this is just that your frontal cortex starts to rewire. This doesn't mean your addiction is gone. It's probably never gone. Yeah? It's still stuck in your mind somewhere, but you start to change your behavior and things like that.
And prioritize different behaviors
Exactly.
in front of it.
Yeah, and that's the point. You can override it Yeah, in NLP we have also the technique of anchoring and overriding anchors. Yeah, so that, for example, to treat smoking, yeah, to go from a smoker to a non-smoker, there are interesting techniques in NLP you can use, which doesn't mean your addiction to that discount. It just means you don't want to do it anymore because it tastes badly or something like that, and you don't want to have something that tastes badly.
The problem many times are the triggers.
Yeah, absolutely.
You say, I'm not a smoker any longer, but then you see a cup of espresso and you are in the right environment, and then you say, well, why not?
If you need another unhealthy compensation for that, that's of course another problem. So to override one problem with another, I don't know if that would make sense. Yes, definitely. I mean, I had this situation actually when I served in the Austrian army, because I was just one of 2 or 3 non-smokers there in my younger years. Everybody in Austria has to do service for the country, either in the army or somewhere else. And the problem was, the only breaks we got was for smoking or for drinking coffee. So my choice was limited. I drank a lot of coffee. Too much. So, individual agile benefit number 2. When we become agile thinkers, we can adapt in ways that can increase our resilience and opportunities. Resilience. We very often hear this word nowadays. We need to be more resilient. Also, organizations need to be resilient, right? So agility seems to lead us in that way. This is coming actually from this book, The Agile Mind, from Dr. what's her name? Wilma, I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm sorry. Kutztal or Kautstal, or I mean she's living in the US, so it might be Kautstal. Yeah. So, I think you also know, or you have seen at least once the Agile principles, right? Who has not? Who knows them by heart?
Yay!
Okay, I had to learn them. Yeah, Ian knows them also, of course. Every CST has to know them. I know. So, now they're pretty interesting. Actually, what I wanted to do first is to figure out, are they for individuals or just for teams? And my analysis brought me to this conclusion, actually. They're pretty neutral. So they can be applied for individuals, actually also for teams, but some of them you can only do as a team, I guess. That's the issue with that. If you have a quick look through them, yeah, which one would be more applicable or as well applicable for individuals, which ones would be more for teams only? What do you think? What's your interpretation?
Number 11 is certainly for teams.
The best architectures, etc. Yeah, it says teams here. Yeah.
And it's like in a private, like personal environment, I'm not sure this.
Yeah, I mean, I had on my list, if you read it, I had on the last line simplicity chunky. So this was my main motivation why I wanted to become also an agile trainer and coach. I want to have everything as simple as possible. Albert Einstein once said this sentence: make things as simple as possible, but not simpler. So simplification, yeah, I think that can be applied to individuals and stuff.
Agile processes promote sustainable development. We are limited to a sustainable pace if you're sure.
Yeah, that's very influenced by the system, I guess, as well. Yeah, definitely. So that's more team-oriented, probably.
I think number 7 is very, it can be very personal because our working software can actually be our mind.
Yeah.
It's our thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
So
so.
the stuff we do,
Stuff we do.
with the task, task we do.
Yeah. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. Yeah. Who was in the workshop with Philip Robert, the gamification one? Yeah. Where he did this exercise with, I wrote an email and please draw a rectangle, etc. Yeah. This is going towards that. Yeah. For the others, yeah, inside joke. Okay, so let's look a little bit further. We have another agile benefit, which was derived from this argument. And this is agile thinking doesn't mean you're always changing or adapting. Sometimes staying the course or approaching it with a more rigid mindset that serves us. That means being agile, and I like this sentence very much because this is one question I asked myself also. Can we still have routines in agility? Are they allowed? Of course, you say of course.
Like testing example, it's like runs all the way.
Okay.
Automated testing, that's like one of the principles, I think.
Yeah.
Also the constant regular feedback loops.
Yeah.
So we need to always respect.
Yeah. So we don't need to change all the time. We don't need to adapt all the time. Probably in some environments it's required, yeah, but I don't want to work there. I for myself, when I feel overwhelmed, I'm going back to the Agile principles. I mean, we have sustainable base here at the number 8. I also want to have sustainable base, but that means I need also time to rest, yeah, to calm down a little bit. And routines help with that. So even in agility, it doesn't mean react to change all the, or respond to change all the time, or it doesn't mean be adaptive all the time. It just means figure out when you have to be it, and then flow into it. Like that, it can become a dance. Right? Maybe tonight at the meeting. Who's going to the meeting at night? Yeah.
Oh, if you're dancing.
We'll do the flow dance then tonight. So, cool. This is a model I learned from a guy who is called Thomas H. Häcker, and he did a lot of. He was a teacher actually, and he wrote a book about pedagogics. Ian, help me. Did I pronounce it correctly? Say for me.
Sorry?
Teaching I hate this word. Pedagogics. Where are teaching? What's the discipline called? Pedagogics. You know what I mean, okay? And he actually came up. This is derived from it. This is a summary pretty much. And he said there are these different conflicts of change people are facing if they are forced to change pretty much. Yeah. So that means, for example, I must do something, but I'm unable to do it. Of course, that creates an inner conflict for me. So we need a tool to overcome that. I mean, if I don't know what's going on, if I don't have the appropriate skills yet, I need to get these skills. So what can we do if we have this conflict, or what should a company do if we have this conflict? Training, teaching, learning, exactly. If you have a conflict like being able to, but I don't want to. Motivation, yeah. At which layer would that be? At which level?
Leadership.
We had behavior, we had skills, we had beliefs, we had identity. Yeah, that goes pretty way up already to beliefs, and that's already the challenge, right? So motivation is very much intrinsic. That means it comes from inside out. And if we don't want to do it, but we would be able to do it, we need to find a way how to influence or change the structure or the system that people want to change this to and get motivated. So that's once again a lot of influence. It's not just about you get a salary raise more. That's one input.
I have nothing against.
Yeah, I think so, but still it doesn't change your belief. Yeah, that's the problem with it. So, we want to become as a team, and that's once again going back to the team view. We want to be more. If we calculate 1 + 1, we want to have 3. So we want to go beyond what we can achieve in parallel. So, what can an organization do that we want to become agile, that we want to become more than we are currently, or that we change? For agility, definitely personal fortresses are an issue. This is coming from our behavior, from our skills, and from our values once again. So to change that. Matrix. I found, I have it in the back of this slide deck. Actually, there's a video which I'm not going to share now. Measuring sharing of knowledge instead of other fancy stuff like story points or something like that. So for example, IBM, Google, they have these metrics introduced that they really look at people and how much did they share, how much did they collaborate, how much did they contribute. Yeah? This is a behavioral change, requires probably new skills, and maybe for some it's really, once again, a value change, a belief change. Building psychological safety, we hear that a lot, so I'm not going into details of that. And this point here, this is the one which I still struggle the most. If we have Scrum teams, if we have development teams, if we have XYZ teams, how can I still be identified as an individual within the group? How does the organization around me identify my contribution? That's once again where we have this connection here. So like having different metrics, having different KPIs in place, etc.
This remaining identifiable, I understood this rather as if you're in a group, you can have this anti-pattern called group thinking.
Yeah.
But if each individual is valued the same, then you can have each can contribute to a solution and speak their mind within the group. So this would be my approach on this.
And I think it's a very good approach. Yeah. So, and also striving for overarching successes by setting challenging goals and accomplishable goals. These are this is a pretty standard thing actually for Scrum Mastery, etc. So, looking a little bit further, once again. Sure, absolutely. I mean, they will. You can download the slides later on anyway. But yeah. So, I think you also heard about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And I thought for myself, aren't they 5 dysfunctions of an individual? I mean, this is a little bit harsh now. This is so the provocative question here. But if you look, when I read through them, absence of trust. This is not a problem of a team. This is a problem of myself. I don't trust you because of something. Yeah? Fear of conflict, my fear of conflict, not the team as a whole. Yeah? Of course, it influences the team, but the fear of conflict is inside of me. Lack of commitment, same. Avoidance of accountability and also inattention to results. And I just thought, why could that happen, that I'm behaving like that I'm not believing in something? Here, lack of commitment, maybe it's a lack of meaning. So once again, the environmental structure is influencing me. If I don't know what I'm working for, and I had a conversation, one of the breaks, and the guy said to me, yeah, working 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day, and by the end of the day, I don't know what I've done. This sounds to me like a lack of meaning. What's the purpose of my work? What I'm contributing to it. So this is once again where we have this environmental changes, where we need the structural changes, that we can change our behavior, and that we can get rid of these dysfunctions ourselves. Individual Agile benefit number 4. Agile mind means we can make required adjustments, move around in our thoughts, and change our behaviors and approaches to ideally suit each situation. Each situation. I mean, it's a little, probably too much. But if we can really make these adjustments and move our thoughts around, I think that's really what agility, if we really embrace agility, if we really live agility, what it can lead to. And that's one of the benefits we can take away from it, if we manage to go this road. So, for the personal evaluation, questions I ask usually. So here we have the more traditional view, what's happening in organization. Here it's more what it should be in an agile environment, I guess. I said, instead of measuring how much did I produce, how much did I support, could be a turnaround probably, could lead to different behavior. Another one, instead of measuring how much did I achieve, asking how much did I share. Of course, we want to achieve something, definitely. But of course, I need to contribute to that. Instead of measuring how much progress did I make, asking how much did I collaborate with the others, so that we were able in the end to make progress. It's still about me, it's about my contribution. And that can be measured as well, theoretically, in numbers as well. Yeah. Instead of measuring how many things did I do, ask how many things did I do? Asking how much did I learn? In agility, it's much about the learning organization. And the learning organization is all of us working in this organization. So if I don't learn as an individual, the organization won't learn. It's a simple cause and causal relationship. Instead of measuring how much trouble did others cause me, asking how happy was I with my reaction. So going back to what you said about being responsive instead of immediately reacting without thinking before. And another one, instead of measuring how many points, hours, fancy units can I report, asking to how much recognizable value did I contribute. Just a few thoughts on how we can change our thinking, and words can change a lot. And that's why I came up with this list. Thank you. By the way, part of my system, my family system, my daughters. You want? When will you come? Hi. So, any questions?
Is there some kind of online test where you can take coverage anymore?
Oh, there are some approaches, yes. I mean, there's the Nokia test. Agile Pulse is now out there. Andreas Mitter introduced. There are a few. Yeah, for individuals, I don't know. No, I don't know. Seriously. The research team is working on something, but they are also more focusing on the organization as far as I know. For individuals, no, that's a white space. Maybe we should fill it. Yeah. Any other questions?
You said we can download the slides.
They will be on SlideShare after the conference, 1 or 2 weeks after.
Version expression. Is there like a part of the conference thing?
I think we will have a link to the slides then. So usually we have it in the archive or so.
What's the next word you're going to pick?
The next word.
Word, yeah. You said you.
This was Polly Campbell.
Ah, this guy.
It was not my. I based it on her theme. Yeah. The next
Alright.
word I'm going to picture. I don't know. I'm still stuck with this one.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.